just one sentence I'm going to read. So it'd be line number 4 or 3, right? You can see the indentation. جرى لي حديث عجيب وأمرا غريب لو كتب بالإبر على أعماق البصر كان عبرة لمن اعتبر. Right. Okay. جرى لي حديث عجيب وأمرا غريب لو كتب بالإبر على أعماق البصر كان عبرة لمن اعتبر. Okay. So Yasmine, your turn.
Well, there's a lot going on in this sentence. Would someone like to attempt a kind of plain translation? We could proceed by drafts if you like.
Okay, maybe, so who knows Arabic here? Yeah, who doesn't know Arabic? So I'll translate word by word, right? Jara li, jara, it happened to me, or something ran alongside me, it happened to me. Hadith ajib, hadith is story or events, could be tale. Ajib, strange or wondrous, right? Wa amran gharib, and strange thing, affair, right? Law kutib.
Why is it written amran, by the way?
Because it's done this way, right? So I'm just like following the text. Rajara bi hadith ajib wa amr gharib, right? Law kutib, right? If it had been written bil ibar, by needles, ala amaq al basar, on the lids of the eye, kana ibratan, it would have been a lesson, liman a'tabar, for those who would contemplate and take lessons from things.
Yes, indeed.
It's a kind.
Yes.
It's almost a kind of.
Recurring thing.
It's recurring.
Yes. Written it.
Yes.
Robin's written about it. You've written the whole essay.
Ibar, Basar,
Ibar.
Tabar.
Ibratan liman a'tabar, right? It's Ibn Khaldun's.
Yes, indeed. Yes, Ibn Khaldun wrote a whole book, Kitab al-Ibar, Book of Science. You learn from Ibra. It may have the sense of giving warning.
Osama bin Munkis wrote a book called Kitab al-Irtibat.
And it's actually interesting to also pair it with basar, right?
Yes.
Because basar is to see, but it's also to think, right? So it goes with, in terms of meaning, goes with tabar, right? And sort of like you have these little words that are the same, but not exactly the same. Jarari, hadith, ajib. And hadith is interesting because it takes us back to the prophetic tradition as well. But it's conventionally used to say, to talk, to tell a story, to say something, to produce discourse, depending on which register you're using. Ajib, gharib, right? And this is Hans Wehr's الحكايات العجيبة والأخبار الغريبة. They are synonymous, but not exactly synonymous, right? In the same pattern, ajib would be more strange, in a sense, ta'ajjab, مش معقول, right? Right? Gharib would be more strange, not familiar, right? The two different connotations, right? And hadith and amr together, right? So amr is not really discourse, it's just something, an affair, right? Low is interesting because it is in Arabic impossible for impossible if it had not been, if it had been written, right? Kutib, passive, bil ibar, right? And ibar rhymes with ibar.
And just on the Ajib and Gharib, Ajib you marvel at. You go, gosh. Whereas Gharib is, oh, that's strange, which is different slightly. But it's kind of heavily over.
You say them together when you talk in Arabic. Shi ajib gharib.
Yeah. But also, if you see something beautiful, in pre-modern times, you don't normally say Jamil, you say Ajib. So you could translate it, I don't think you should here, but you could translate it as beautiful. Probably not.
And it's also in at the end of every night, what the sister, what Dunyazad says to Shahrazad is what an ajib story this is. which I simply have as strange, I think, strangest story, with the implication that it's beguiling and that you want to hear more of it. But there is no single word that can catch all of the associations. Yes.
As well.
Yes.
And Schreiber wrote an interesting article on this. On the he calls the ajab like a technique, a dramatic technique, because in the story, the more the reader is engaged in the story, the more it becomes, astonished or new marvelous coming out. So he says that ajab is a kind of dramatic technique.
What about Tajub Shayan?
Ajaba, of course. Like in Arabic, when we say we like something, we don't say we like something. أحب الشيء. We say أعجبني الشيء, right? It provokes wonder in me, right? And it's interesting because غريب الألفاظ in classical studies is about these not very familiar words that you use, or words you use in Arabic not in a familiar way. So in a sense, very close to defamiliarization in modern critical. So عجيب غريب القرآن. We don't say عجيب القرآن. غريب القرآن. الألفاظ الغريبة. Things like this. So it's here we are.
This is an event, I believe. So hadith, and there's a link between hadith, which is like something you say, hadith يحدث كلمة, and amar, that is which basically a reference to praxis or actual practical praxis of something that is actually an action and happening in an event. So amar, it's relating to both talking. The event comprises of both talking and action itself.
Is amar also a command?
It is, yes. But
Yes, it can be, yes.
Grave as well, you mentioned. Grave is something, in familiarization, I would say that grave is something that is not local, so let's say so.
unfamiliar.
Yeah. Maghreb is also the west, right? The west, yeah.
Hawadis? Hawadis is plural.
Hawadith is plural. But it's also kutib bil-ibar. How do you write with needles?
Well, exactly, it's very strange. This word, it's armark. It's not in the Hansberg dictionary. Is a word you've ever come across before? Armark.
Armark. In classical style.
You see it as corners of the eye sometimes.
Yeah.
So could it be alluding a kind of a permanence, like as in embroidery, as in stitching? Like
it could be, that the Bedouins they do on their eyes tattoo around.
Yeah, but this is here. We're talking about.
That's why it's unusual. But there is tattooing in Arabic tradition of the face.
Sure.
So you are needling something on your face.
I associate it possibly through things I've read with an amuletic use against the evil eye. I mean, that this is inscribing, as in amulets, they are actually calligraphically inscribed with words that avert danger, hold it at bay.
Yes.
And that's the function of the stories.
Yes.
I mean, you were talking about the sentence that she is averting. Well, this is a sense that the kind of envoi at the end of the story, which repeats the actual gesture of attempting to avert danger. So this is, I don't know if you agree, but it seems to me that this is not a human eye. This is a representation which conforms to what a text is doing, of calligraphic blessing or calligraphic averting of danger. Each story is doing that. Each story is protecting her from a further danger.
I think it's a phrase similar to the one where the king says, this is a story worthy to be written in letters of gold and put in the library. It is a horrific image, but I use it myself when I'm showing people around my library. It is a sight worthy to be graven on the corner of the eye with a golden needle. It means it's an amazing sight. It's normally translated corner, but I don't know where they got the corner from.
Corner of the eye?
Yes.
Right. I just don't know. It may refer to some strange practice which we've forgotten about.
And as a sentence now, it has a kind of talismanic value.
Because buy them in any souvenir shop.
Oh, God.
Engraved out.
But I mean, even because what it actually refers to has been lost or is now mysterious, this sentence, this recurring sentence becomes
it does recur.
Formula, yeah.
Okay.
It recurs within the story.
In this text or in other texts as well?
In all the Arabic texts, in a lot of the stories, yeah.
So why isn't it in Hans Verve if it appears so much? This Amar.
Hans Verve was human.
It's just come to me, there was a memoir of a British policeman in Egypt, I've forgotten his name, and he mentions a case where a man was found on a bench, sort of completely dazed and incoherent, but apparently he had his eye written upon with a needle. Possibly they took that from the Arabian Nights and dumped it into this strange crime narrative.
So what would be the singular of Amar?
I don't know. Let me try and find it because I think it is in older dictionaries.
It's af'al. It's
Is it?
Muq, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Muq. Oh,
Amar, right? Af'al.
Yeah.
So it's mawaqa.
Oh, mawaqa. Okay, maybe it isn't. I looked at it.
Or muq. Do you think it's muq or muq?
Muq. C mark, yes.
Okay. We have about 40 minutes to do something with this sentence. Are we ready? Shall we?
How many?
4 or 5. It's up to you. Who would like to start? Who's ready to start and tell us what they have done?
No, we first thought we were going to do it colloquial to make our life easy, and then we will do it proper English. But then we spent so much time arguing on every single word of colloquial that we only managed the colloquial.
Okay, well,
alas.
Read it out anyway.
Okay, yeah. Something strange and amazing happened to me. If someone saw it etched on the skin of eyelids, it would be an unforgettable lesson for those willing to learn.
Okay. Nice. All right. Okay. Do we need an explanation?
I like etched.
Okay. Can you tell us, quickly, what happened in the process?
A whole page of scratches.
What did you argue about?
What did we argue about? We spent a lot of time thinking about the register, because I think once we started with something strange and amazing happened to me, then for anything to follow it, we ruled out a couple of different options. We spent a long time talking about the image of the needle, the tattooing or stitching, or is it with a thread, or is it drawing? And then we considered some more colloquial options, which we then ruled out as not sort of holding the gravitas of it. So we considered even food for thought, and then we sort of moved beyond that because we sort of felt it didn't hold the meaning of it. But that's sort of, I think register was probably the main thing we were thinking about.
Thank you. Anybody next? How about this group?
Oh, okay. I will stand up. A marvelous story, a strange tale, has just befell me. If it had been stitched into the corner of the eye, it would have been a lesson to those willing to learn.
Well done. Yeah. All right. So what did you talk about? What kind of issues came up as you were working on the sentence?
A lot of issues.
Vocabulary.
Yeah. We're lucky to have someone who actually walks around with this. So it has me. I think the impression I got that the intention for all of us was to convey both the meaning and the complexity of the language. I mean, I know it's simple, but convey that beauty of the rhyming and all that. So, and that's why we went for the duality of. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm using the right terms. Of marvelous story and a strange tale, just to keep it. It feels the same in a way. And there was a bit of a debate about whether we go with inking, tattooing, stitching.
Same.
Yeah. And the inner corner of the eye initially it was, and then there was another version that was into the depth of the sight, which I thought would have been really beautiful. That
cradle of the sight also.
There was a Shakespearean word that I did not even know about before. Do you want to tell us about that, please? I think it's very interesting.
Oh no. Well, no, we just thought about another level of translation, as you said before. I mean, sometimes you go even further and far away, so it becomes a rereading of the text. So instead of saying the inner corner of the eye, we thought about the depth of the cradle of the sight. The cradle of the depth, cradle, sorry for my English, and the depth of the sight with the idea it's something that goes in depth, but you can just a trial.
That's actually great. Cradle on the side. Yeah. Okay. Right. Another group here.
Yeah, I think we basically agreed only on the first part of the translation.
And then we have different ideas.
Yeah. But the concept behind it was actually to simplify the language very much and to have a performance of the text that is very much contemporary and almost colloquial.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first part that we agreed on is if you want to read it.
Yeah. The first part is so weird and wonderful what happened to me. And then
we disagree.
One bit could be were it tattooed on my eyelids, it would be like a lesson for those who seek. But
or because we also thought written on the eyelids or like this, it's so obvious, like it's stamped on my forehead.
Yeah.
So we thought about this, like that it's so obvious, like the obvious.
It's so obvious. It's like is like printed on my, and we have this expression, and that's why I think the departure as well, because we got lost a bit in translation.
Yeah.
For me, in Italian, it would be stampato in fronte, which means printed on the forehead, which is a departure again from the Arabic text and the Arabic language and how and so on. And so that's what to me sounds more like a good translation of this. It's so obvious that it would be like printed on my forehead.
Yeah, that strikes me as very legitimate, actually. Yes.
So maybe it's your turn.
Oh, ours is along the same line. Something weird and wonderful happened to me. If it was tattooed onto someone's eyelid, it would serve as a lesson to those who take heed.
Okay.
I mean, I think the tattoo should be there because I don't really see how else you can imagine this as other than
is
as
it
a
in a corner
tattoo.
of the eyelid, right?
Yeah.
Carved into the flesh.
Yes.
Look at the Bedouins' faces. They have
Tattoos, yeah.
all over them. If you look
But this is on the eye itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is
in a corner, the eye.
I think it's meant to be menacing and strange, so therefore engraved actually on the eyeball.
Engraved.
Oh, really? Eyeball.
Engraved in the sense that, but it would heal and disappear.
Well, you're just being rational there. No.
I think there's a connection with the tattooing on the eye with the fact that they're one-eyed. That there's a whole theme in the book about sighted and non-sighted.
Yes.
And who sees what, what the king sees and doesn't see.
What is not seen.
So there's a tremendous kind of thematic about being blind even when you can see. So I tried to do something that sort of captures that, but it's obviously, I'm doing it from the French anyway. So it's the dervish speaking. I've only one eye, but I've seen the strangest thing, and my eyes still bear the mark. It will dazzle you, cross your heart and hope to die, and my tail shall keep you safe. Because I was trying to get this amuletic idea. So it's very, obviously not following the actual Arabic. It's trying to go for the thematic of the two things that are happening. One, that he's blind, half blind, and he's overwhelmed by the story, or we will be able to run that story. Also the function of the story, the homiletic function of the story.
And Yasmine, what did you do?
Well, I have a version that existed before, and then I've done a new one for the purposes of this workshop. Perhaps I'll read you the one I've just done, which is a bit longer and closer to the text. My adventure is so strange, my story so bizarre, that if you were to carve it with a needle in the corner of an eye, it would be a lesson to those who would listen. I was just thinking with lesson and listen that one of the important things in the Arabic is exactly that it plays on one root, and two words come from the single root. So either that would involve taking one English word and having two variations on it, or having a sort of play on sound, lesson and listen. But the version that is probably going to be published is this: my story is so strange that if you were to carve it with a needle in the corner of an eye, it would be a warning to the wise. So it's more simple, and it doesn't catch everything in the Arabic, and it collapses, hadith, ajib, or amr, gharib into one phrase. My story is so strange. So you lose that doubling and the different meanings of ajib and gharib, but for the interests of readability and flow, I've compressed it. But I'm not sure I would run on that ticket. I don't know that that's the right thing to do. But then there's also a parallel between my story is so strange and then a warning to the wise, that there's a kind of doubling in the sound. So something doubled is preserved, but just redistributed, which is another kind of strategy or technique that you're always thinking about, even unconsciously, that you pick up on an effect, and if you can't reproduce it in the same place, you might find another point in the text where you can place it to create that sound or whatever it is.
This actually, can I ask something? How much of the translation process for you is based on intellect, and how much of it is based on feeling and emotion?
I don't know that I would separate them.
So the visceral reaction to Arabic.
I mean, it's quite sober work. It's pretty unromantic, and it goes through many drafts. A lot of it is talking to myself, reading it aloud a lot, and repacing it. I mean, particularly with this kind of thing, you have to keep taking it from the beginning and making sure it works as a single, as a flow. And it's changed a lot. It's really, when I say learning on the job, it really is. The process generates insights about the text and about what translation is, about English and how it works. It's an enormously generative process. There's almost a kind of theory that arises from the practice, I think, or at least a whole set of ideas about what translation is or can be that comes directly out of the doing of it. But I find it quite hard to account for the process in retrospect, or to account for how certain choices were made. It does feel quite intuitive and laborious at the same time.
Well, maybe then we should take a break.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So before we go.